What do you do when your webinar doesn't work and nobody shows up or nobody buys? Hi, I'm Monica Shah from Revenue Breakthrough, and I want to talk about what to do when you're in a crash and burn experience. Now, the reason I want to talk about this first and foremost is because I think one of the biggest myths out there that is simply untrue is that that if you're an expert or a guru or you're awesome in your industry, that you're not experiencing disappointment. And so what that means is that we have this tendency to think, oh, when a webinar doesn't work or somebody doesn't show up, or frankly, any time that we experience failure or disappointment, that we are the only one experiencing it. And here's what I'm here to tell you. I have been doing this work for over 15 years. I've literally at this point done hundreds of webinars, and we still have experiences at Revenue Breakthrough with my company where things fall, where it just doesn't work. And here's what I want you, in fact, I want to tell you a specific story. About 4 years ago, we launched a program called Master Your Money Type. Now, I paid over $5,000 to have a live stream team come and live stream the whole, create a live stream for the launch. I was super excited about it. I thought, oh my gosh, money types is something that I teach, and I'd been teaching it at live events for a while, and I thought for sure it was going to be an amazing program and sell out. Well, we get to the end of the live stream and we had much lower sales. I'm talking, I was wanting somewhere in the ballpark of 50 to 70 sales. We maybe got 10. And I was devastated, spent hours figuring out what content I was going to do, spent a ton of money on the live stream, really mapping everything out, only to realize when I went back and looked, I realized nobody really wants to master their money type because they don't know what a money type is. And I had made the very basic mistake that I help all of my clients avoid, which is don't name something that people don't recognize or that isn't problem oriented or isn't benefit oriented. And yet there I was, having made that same mistake myself. And I didn't catch it, my coach didn't catch it, and it is what it is. So what we ended up doing for that particular live stream is first I cried and ranted and raved. And then I turned around and I sent an email out to my list. I offered to set up conversations with anybody that was interested in talking to me. And one by one, I put people into the program. We didn't fully hit our numbers at the end of the program, but we got at least a percentage of them. And I salvaged the launch. Now, what's the moral of the story here for you? First of all, understand that in this day and age with COVID-19 and everything going on, you are probably doing more online than you've ever done before. And what that means is that you are going to be doing experiments, doing videos, doing lives, doing webinars, and people may show up or they may not show up. And one of the things I really want you to get is being online, the name of the game is treating everything like an experiment. So what do you do, when you do a webinar and nobody shows up or nobody buys on your webinar? How do you respond to that scenario? Step number one, I'm going to give you a couple concrete steps here. Step number one is to stop beating yourself up about it. It happens to the best of us. If I were standing here with all my seven-figure and multiple seven-figure colleagues, literally I could pan the camera around and everybody would have a similar story of a launch that didn't work, a book launch, an event launch, a webinar launch, a program launch that they thought for sure was going to be gangbusters, that they didn't get the sales they wanted. So know that you are not alone. This is just a rite of passage, and don't beat yourself up about it. Step number two is check your expectations, because oftentimes when you're disappointed around something like a webinar or a video, especially with webinars, the webinar numbers are actually pretty interesting, meaning that Only 10 to 20% of the people that register for your webinar are going to show up for your webinar. And then on your webinar, if you sell anywhere from 3 to 20% of the people on your webinar, you actually did great. So I want you to go back and look at your numbers. Is it that you didn't do well, or is it that you just needed more people there? That's step number 2. Step number 3 is don't isolate. Go get help. Get help from an expert. Get help from somebody that can help you to figure out what the problem was. Was it a title problem? Was it a content problem? Was it a numbers problem? Stay out of the emotional brain and get into the analytical brain of looking at the numbers, looking at the copy, and seeing if you and that expert can help you figure it out. And by the way, you guys, I help people all day long with this stuff. In fact, I always say the numbers will set you free, because when we look at things from an analytical perspective with my clients, we often find, oh, this is why it didn't work. And step number 4 is don't be afraid to keep going, right? The difference between mature entrepreneurs that have been doing this for a while and beginning entrepreneurs is just that we don't expect things to be perfect, right? At all. It doesn't surprise me when something doesn't work. It doesn't take me out of the game when something doesn't work. I look at it and I'm like, oh shit, we did something wrong. It's time for me to go to plan B, go to plan C, go to plan D, go to plan E. And I am resilient enough to not beat myself up in that process, but to just get up and go to plan B and plan C. So don't give up on yourself. Don't stop, right? That's why I started with that story in the beginning, because when the live stream didn't work, I didn't just end the launch and be like, screw it, right? I'm not going to make any money on this. I'm just going to take a loss in it. It's going to be awful. Believe me, I had a little tantrum in the beginning where I wanted to do that. But what I did instead was say, okay, let me turn around, send an email to my list, offering conversations to people. And then from those conversations, I put people into the Master Your Money type program, and it ended up working out really well. So I want you to think about, how can I salvage the situation, right? If your webinar didn't work, maybe you do another webinar and you title it differently, or you add different content. Maybe you re-invite people back for more. Maybe you send out an email to your list and set up conversations. There's lots of ways to salvage the situation, but only if, number 1, you get help from someone like me, like a business coach or an expert who can help you figure out what's plan B and plan C, and if you're not willing to give up on yourself. Okay, so if you're wondering, gosh, I'm really isolating and I'm doing everything by myself, I want you to take a moment and first take a deep breath. And then I want you to reach out for help, because I would love to have a conversation with you about your business, about the things that are working, about the things that aren't working, and see if we can come up with your plan Bs, your plan Cs, and keep you in the game longer, no matter what happens. All right, go ahead and if you are interested in having a conversation, just leave us a comment below and we will connect with you, or reach out to us at support@revenuebreakthrough.com. Thanks.